I gotta get the right kind of news atmosphere. What is we gotta get the right um like news broadcast.
Yes, it's a different type of
It's a different coverage tonight. Hi everybody, welcome to our holiday live stream. We don't normally do these on holidays, but today is a very special holiday. There are elections happening in the UK, and Barry and I, if you're a longtime listener of the show, know that we follow elections quite closely and kind of nerd out over some of the results. Like, I will be up until your 3 to 6 a.m. following all the official results. But the reason we're doing this now is because, hey, we got an exit poll in about 3.5 minutes. I'm so excited. This will be a little bit of a different take tonight. We'll be looking at politics through the lens of human factors. And of course, my view is very US centric. And so I'm kind of the outsider looking in. So I will be turning to the field expert, Barry Kirby, over there in the UK to give us all the answers that we're looking for. So Barry, what is the state of everything over there? How are people feeling?
So I think it's interesting because talking to a wide range of people about what they're expecting, about whether this is a who's won this campaign or who's perhaps lost it, is quite interesting. It's are people expecting to see a big change in what's going on? Do they expect to see because the last big sweeping potential election we had like this was in 1997 when there was a big change, but people are not feeling it in the same sort of way. It seems to be more focused on getting the incumbent party out rather than heralding in a new set of change. But in about, I guess, 2.5 minutes now, we'll find out what the polling looks like. But obviously, this goes with that caveat of polls are not votes. So
yeah, I was gonna say. So can you walk us through this exit poll? Because my understanding of this exit poll is that this is a very there's no, unlike the US, there's no political reporting allowed until polls close.
Correct.
Whereas here, you'll have polls closing in Tennessee at 6 p.m. And so that, of course, means that, even on the West Coast, you're starting to see results as early as 3 p.m. And so
I guess we've got an advantage there, or that we are in one time zone, which helps.
Yeah.
So I think it's around 1,500 polling stations out, have specific tellers outside of them asking people who've just voted, what did they vote? So it's not every single constituency, it's a sample of constituencies up down the UK. That is then aggregated forward to create this exit poll. So it is seen as better than normal polling, because rather than asking how are you going to vote, it's asking how have you just voted.
Right.
So we will see in about 60 seconds or
and it's historically been pretty accurate, right?
Mostly there has been a couple of years where it's been completely wildly inaccurate. So just because it says that we're going to get something massive here doesn't necessarily mean that's actually going to be the case. So I'm here in my in the place where we usually are when we do this, but I've got a big screen going up on one wall. I've got other screens going off here. So we're just waiting to see what this exit poll is going to show us. I'm trying to work out which is going to be the best one to watch. But I think
I know. So I have also 4 separate feeds up. I have Sky News, BBC. I have another one, and then Reuters is up as well. It looks like they're broadcasting the exit poll live on the side of the BBC building. Looks like it's going live now. Let's see. Are they going to post it?
I guess we shouldn't make the audio live, should we?
No, I don't think the audio should be live there. But the poll has hit 0. It looks like a Labour landslide, according to according to Sky. 410 seats projected.
131 to Conservatives. So I need to pull up what my what one of my predictions was, to see just how far off I was with that. And now all the things are going. Yeah, so Amanda just sent me a picture of that, which is awesome. Where's my chat gone?
Where's the chat gone? Oh.
So I did some 13 seats for reform. So some of the interesting stuff out of here. So yes, I'm looking over at my big screen here to make.
I've got it here too.
410 seats is way more than I anticipated, I think. Let's get me up to where I put some of them numbers in. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so 400. I'd estimated 438, so I'm in the right ballpark there. Conservatives have done better than I anticipated. I thought they would just tip over 100. Greens. So this is quite sad. So the Greens have got 2 seats, or they're predicted to get 2 seats. Now that's
right.
The one seat is one that they already called, but the other one is in Bristol Central, which is where we're thinking that that's going to come from. And that's a real shame if that actually comes to fruition, because there's the Labour candidate, the Labour MP there is a fantastic candidate called Thangam Debonair. And so if that is actually accurate, I'll be quite disappointed. So Reform getting 13 seats. That's so for those of you in the US know Nigel Farage as well, because he likes to go and support Trump in doing his speeches and things like that. So yes, we expected him to win his seat, but maybe 1 or 2 more. To get 13, that feels ambitious. Lib Dems on 61. What did I put them? See, I had Lib Dems on 58, so that's there or thereabouts, I think. The SNP, yeah, in fact, I guess that was my guess exactly. Then others on 23 seats. So an interesting one for here in Wales. We have a nationalist party called Plaid Cymru. And so it'd be interesting to see the number of seats they get there, because there's a number of factors here in Wales that are interesting. But it's interesting seeing these polls and what you mentioned earlier, because certainly if we're going to, let's put a bit of human factor slant onto this, is how much, that whole thing that we do. How much do you think that polls are pushing the agenda? So when we start getting for the past 6 weeks that we've had this, we've had a number of polls being published, everything from MRP polls to all the different methodologies, which most people don't actually understand. Least of all me. But when people then see, they're clearly winning, does that affect the way people want to vote in order to vote for the winning team, as it were, rather than saying what they do? Because there's been a lot of discussion recently about should we be banning polls. Like some countries do ban political reporting on polls, which I think has a pros and cons to that. But if we have a majority of 170, which they're predicting, if Labour are having a majority of 170, that's an impressive result. But that's still only a poll. It's a half-decent poll, but it's still only a poll. We will know more, I will guess. We will have a Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer having a conversation, I would guess, probably in the early hours, probably about 5-6 o'clock in the morning, I would guess. But yeah, interesting times.
So is this? So I heard. Well, to answer, to go back on the first point, should polls be outlawed or banned? I think this is just my personal opinion here. I think polls themselves are not necessarily the problem. Polls give you a pulse on what is going on, and I think polls are deeply flawed in a lot of ways and don't really do a great job of getting at a representative sample of who's planning to vote. At least here in the States, it's deeply flawed. And I think the issue is not necessarily the polls themselves. They do what they can. It's the reporting on the polls that is sort of the issue. And so I think from that human factors perspective, if you were to sort of limit the amount of reporting that would happen on polls and taking them as fact and running with them as fact, then I think you might see a reduction in that voting for the winning team. Because I think, at least from my perspective here in the States, there's a lot of indicators that would indicate that we're going to have a similar environment politically that you're having over there. And I don't think that's what the media is portraying at this point. I think there's sort of a mismatch between what is actually happening versus what the media is reporting. And so I think, to answer your question, the media reporting on polls, I think, would be the issue there. And then the other piece that I was going to bring up is, do we know if Rishi has lost a seat yet? Do we know that?
So I've just seen a thing there. We won't know that till probably about 3:00 in the morning.
Okay, that's in the morning.
Like the polling as it sits looks like he keeps his seat, which quite frankly is disappointing. But there we go. I would that type of person in me would quite like to see his see him lose his seat just for a bit of a laugh, really.
Yeah, and so I'm reading that this is comparable to 1997. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, let me just quickly check. What was the poll? See, ironically, in 1997, I wasn't interested in politics at that point. See, so the exit poll in 97 had Labour would win a majority of 159. So now they're saying, if I've lost what this majority is going to be now. That's quite cool. Yeah, so it doesn't say here. Majority 159 says Yeah. So yes, it's within that. It's definitely within the ballpark. So, that's impressive.
Let's see. I'm reading here. Chancellor Hunt projected to be the first ever to lose.
Yeah. So Amanda's helping us here a bit with.
Thank you, Amanda. This is excellent. I love having extra.
So now, if we look to have if Labour looked to have a majority of 170 this time, well, 1997 was seen as an earthquake. It was. We knew it was going to be good at the time, but not as good as it was. So if this holds true, then this is the biggest change that we've ever seen. And we've got to have a bit more context here as well, because when in 1997, the Labour Party had almost 2 shots at this. So in the 92 election, yes, in the 1992 election, Labour thought they were going to win then, and they didn't. And so really they had a bit of time then to reform, and that's when Tony Blair came in and did his thing and won 97. In 2019, the Labour Party had its worst result in I think it was around 35 years. So if not more, but it was the worst result ever. And when Keir Starmer came into the party, or came to be the leader, a lot of people, and hands up, me included, thought he wouldn't be the person to take us to victory. He would do what Neil Kinnock did, which was repair the party, and then it would take somebody else to come on and actually provide that boost to do a win. So when you consider, not only are we going to get a bigger majority here, but also the fact that they've taken the party from complete ruin all the way through to this, I guess what they cut. That we've now stolen some American terminology here. It's now they're now referring to it as a supermajority. So thank you for that. And
Red Tsunami. Red Tsunami.
Well, I never knew until today actually what was meant by a supermajority.
Really?
Because in the UK, we don't have this idea of a supermajority. We've stolen that American terminology. and the fact that it's what exists to overturn a presidential veto.
Well, so yeah, is that conceptually how things would work over there? If
Well, you can't. No, because
there's no
because we
veto.
don't have a presidential system, there's nothing to overturn at that point. All we have is a very large majority. But what there's been one of the effective messages, in fact, probably one of the two effective messages that the Conservatives have been able to put out around this is this idea that they don't want to give Labour too big a majority, because then Labour would just ride roughshod over everything. So again, it's interesting from that messaging about when they pitch something, what lands and what works. And so they started talking about this supermajority, which I've never heard of before in elections. So, or certainly over here. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how that plays out, because it does mean. I mean, one of the things. So when they've been reflecting on what previous leaders have done, when Tony Blair took Labour to their majority, then they felt that they were quite timid and they could have been bolder. So it'll be interesting to see just what Keir Starmer does in his first 100 days. Because clearly he's going to be taking that, but now we're looking at weighing the vote, I think is the appropriate phrase now. So
Let's see. I read something here. There's a long list of cabinet members projected to lose or in toss-ups. There had only been 12. Someone saw a graphic the other day that there had only been 12 who had done so ever, total.
And then we're going to double that today. So now what we're seeing is another interesting piece of thing is who is the first person to, or who is the first constituency to get their result in? Because as we've sort of said, and I think this is quite interesting when you look at the nuts and bolts of how this stuff works, and certainly from our piece from a Workshare, how the complete process of counting this vote, that we've got 3 constituencies that race to work out who can get their result verified and counted first. And so that is Blyth, Sunderland, and Newcastle. And so if you're on, I guess, Sky News, you can see that that they're racing against each other to try and be the first ones to report. So yes, it's there's a lot of ins and outs going now. And I guess the downside of what we do now is that there's now, I guess, not that much of interest to happen for the next, at least probably till midnight at the earliest. Most seats are looking will report between 2 and 3 UK time. So,
right. So is it going to be a late night for you? Are you going to stay up and follow some of it? Or are you going to just kind of wake up in the morning and this is good enough?
I think there'll be a bit of both. There will be a point where we might go and go to bed with some snacks and watch it on our phones until we get some more interesting things. What's going to be interesting now, I think, is there's going to be a lot of spinning going on. There's going to be a lot of ministers, ex-ministers, whatever you want to call them, party representatives trying to spin this Labour landslide exit poll in a way that doesn't look terrible. Now, this is terrible for the Conservatives, though you can't get away from that fact. But it was terrible from day one. The way that you sort of turn around and look at it was almost a case of if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And it did go wrong. Everything from calling the election in the first place. There's a lot of talk about exactly what will Rishi Sunak do. Will he resign straight away? Or resign as leader? And all that sort of stuff. So there's going to be a lot of small bits of drama to play out. And we'll see how it goes.
One thing that I find fascinating about your elections that's very different from ours is when ours happen, we have 2 or 3 months of ramp up for the next administration to come in, for the next group of the next cohort to sort of be sworn in. For you, it all happens tomorrow. Like that, right?
Pretty
That's
much. Yeah.
the turn's over. You're ready to go.
And really, that's the again taking away the almost like the politics of it. When we look at the workload behind that you've got number 10, number 11. So there's been talks going on already. The civil servants are obviously the gears in the machine that make all this work. And so what will happen is once Rishi Sunak concedes, they will then leave Downing Street at some point tomorrow at the day or whatever. So my guess it would be, I'm guessing it's going to be fairly early on, say 9 10 o'clock. There will be a concession speech. Then the Keir Starmer, assuming, will go to the palace and ask the king his consent to form a government. In that time, where are we counting? That's lots of them.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I figured I'd throw it. So this is courtesy of Reuters.
Cool. Okay.
I just throw a visual here since we're talking about it. They're actually out there counting right now. And so figured this would be a fun little visual for us all to look at while this is going on.
This is the bit that fascinates me. And again, I don't know, because I know you in the US you have a lot of electronic voting as well, which we just simply don't have. What I love about this is that no matter how far and wide a lot of these voting stations are, there is an absolute effective chain of evidence that goes from your ballot being cast in that box, to that box being sealed, to the boxes coming back in, and every vote that was cast is then verified by hand to know that it's coming to the counting station. And so before they do any counting whatsoever of party affiliation, they turn around and say, right, that this box or this polling station had 2,000 votes cast. They then go and count to make sure that the 2,000 votes that left are the 2,000 votes that arrived, which is what they're doing now. That's what you can see on the screen there. They're not counting individual votes, but they're counting, they're validating the boxes that validate the votes that were cast that are actually in front of the counters. And that can take ages, but from a science point of view, this is where the fun begins, because this is where you will then have tellers or polling agents stood just out of shot of the camera, so that in front of that Team 6 table, you will have 5 or 6, one from each party, looking at them and sampling that data. So they'll be looking at the one individual teller and going, right, 1, 2, sample, 1, 2, sample, or whatever sampling regime they're using. And this is where I used to love.
This is your spreadsheet. This is
the spreadsheet stuff that we talked about last time. And so then they're gathering that data, and depending on who's mastering that data together, you will then, before they've even started counting that vote, they should have an idea about who's won. A good statistical model on who's won in front of them, which from a science, from the sort of work that we do, that sampling idea, I just think it's absolutely brilliant and fascinating. So with this, what they're doing here, you can see they're being quite sprinty about it. They're trying to get in because they're trying to get this idea of being the first ones to declare. And it's really got to be that balance between the quality that you're not losing any votes coming in, making sure that every vote is counted, but also injecting a bit of fun, a bit of competitiveness in there, just to make it a bit interesting, I guess. So we'll sort of see how it goes. But the amount of stuff that all the parties do, the amount of stuff that all the staff do to make all this stuff happen, the amount of preparation and things that go into it is phenomenal. But it all seems to mostly run like a well-oiled machine. So,
which is fascinating, because this is not something that, you could practice, you can do the procedure, but this is it's like preparing for a a catastrophic event where you can only do so much prep work until the real thing happens, and then here's the real thing, and so now,
yeah.
yeah,
Don't forget that I guess that these normally are council staff workers who do this on a relatively regular basis. We have elections most years, one way or another, and so it's the same teams that do it on the whole. So you come in and do, and you get on with it. But I guess the bigger difference with the general election as opposed to the local elections is the timing. Some councils will still count overnight, which, from my perspective, I absolutely love, because you get in it and it's just the adrenaline run of the entire day, especially if you've been out campaigning. Now, I haven't been campaigning this year for various reasons, but from a if you've been out on the doorstep, you've been doing all that, and then you get a bit of respite before you then go to the count and work out what's going on in there, and then you're getting on with that piece. You want to know the result of your day's efforts. But on all other council elections and things, then they will tend to put them on maybe the next day. So they secure all the boxes, everyone goes to bed, and then 9 o'clock in the morning they start the count, which from a workload perspective and fatigue perspective makes absolute sense, because your council workers have been manning the polling districts, the polling booths and things like that all day, or volunteers have. And so then to allow people to get some sleep and come back in and count fresh, because it's quite a monotonous job.
Yeah, it's a vigilance task. It's a vigilance task.
Yeah. So, and we know that from what we do. If you're just asking them to count and check, and that's how easy mistakes are made. Now, it is, I guess, if we explore some of the mitigation strategies against some of them counting mistakes, so they don't just go and count them all. They'll sort them all into piles and count them into blocks of normally 50. So they'll count them into 10s and then to blocks of 50, and then into larger blocks, so into bundles. And so that means that you're not. So then you take them all over to a central repository, and people start counting the bundles, which makes A, the counting, but B, the checking. So if somebody wants to recount, it means you've got different levels of recount that you can do as well, which is, again, it's something that clearly they've learned over time how best to do some of this stuff. But I don't think there's anybody coming out with any major upsets at the moment, which is I'm just trying to see if there's any actually output. Sorry, the exit polls for each individual ward or area. So oh no, that's not that. I want the the forecast.
Just a funny thing here. BBC has a Tory MP at their pundits desk with less than a 1% chance of winning re-election.
Oh no, that's funny, but sad, but funny. See, Sky had a thing where it was going to help with the exit poll in particular areas. I'd quite like to get into that.
So what's interesting to me here is you were talking about polling a little earlier, and the thing about polling is that, from what I understand, a lot of these races will be very tight, and so we could see some pretty big variance in this exit poll, just simply based on that variance itself. And even looking at some of the final projections that came in from polling prior to polls closing, you were looking at anywhere from from 64 seats for conservatives all the way up to 126 seats for conservatives, anywhere from 483 seats for Labor down to 418. So the range is quite large. And all the other ones are they have a smaller range, obviously, because you don't have as many projected seats for them, but you can still see that there's quite a range there, and this could change quite dramatically over the next few hours as some of these tighter races get called, right?
It absolutely will over the night. As some of this stuff comes out, it will just be interesting to see how close this exit poll is, because a lot of people look at the exit poll and say, it's that's a done deal. And we now talked about the numbers, like they are, like that's exactly what's going to happen. But actually, no, there's been times when they've been inaccurate. So, I'm going to try and bring an example of. I don't have that back to hand. Here we go. So, in fact, in 2017, the exit poll. In fact, I didn't realize it was this long, but I know why, because I was involved in that thing. In 2017, the exit poll predicted a hung parliament, and it wasn't. It was basically not that. It was much better. 2015, that was that. It was quite close. Yeah, in 1974, there was an exit poll that led majority of 132, but the actual majority was only 3. So, that's quite a significant difference.
Yeah.
92, they expected a hung parliament, but actually ended up with a slim Tory majority. So
I'm looking at a breakdown here of the accuracy of exit polls. Hang on, let me see if I can share my screen here. Probably that one. So looking at the accuracy here, this is actually just number of seats. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Number of seats accurately called over the years here, and I realize that all these visual elements are in the way. So just give me 1 second. I'll clear some of that stuff out. Maybe we can see it here. We're just missing 2019 here on the visual, but I guess I could perhaps move it over. Maybe no. But what we're looking at, oh geez, come on, how do I do this? Feel like, so okay, here we go. No, here we go. Got this. There we go. Now we get the full image here. So yeah, kind of looking at the methodology. Apparently, there's a switch here between 97 and 2001, and since then, the numbers have been pretty close to the exit polls, just in terms of the number of seats won by the largest party, and that's one metric.
Yeah, see, I mean that 92 is the one I was talking about earlier with
yeah,
Major, and that was a basically significant difference when it come to the actual majority. So but yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I guess throughout this campaign, a lot of people, we've been talking about different polling, different types of polling, and MRP polling has come very much into its own this time, I think. So that's multi-regression analysis, and a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't until I had it explained to me, why all the polls, particularly the MRP polls, which are supposed to be more accurate, have been proven to be widely different. And that is all down to the number of don't knows. So whenever you get asked who you're going to vote for, you'll either say, I'm going to vote Labour, or I'm going to vote Republican, or depending on where you vote, what you're doing. But a good half of the people you speak to will say, well, I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to vote. Don't know how I'm going to vote. Or I'm not going to tell you, which is another option. But if you have a... that's what I'm looking for. If you turn around and say, don't know, then the use of the multi-regression is the way that they will then handle that, I don't know. Now, they will either turn around and say... So some of the models will turn around and say, well, historically... the last question is like, who did you vote for last time? Who did you vote for the time before? And if you show a bit of a trend, then they will turn around and say, right, if you voted, I don't know, Democrat last time and the time before, but you don't know this time, chances are you will vote for Democrat this time, because that's what you voted for in the past, and therefore you know people don't really change. The other people will turn around and say, well, actually, what happens in the constituency, and what was the constituency vote like last time? Therefore, they'll take all the don't knows and divvy them up as per what the constituency voted, rather than the individual. And so it's all about how they handle them don't knows, give you the wide variety of what the results could be. And the same is with this exit poll. You know that why we're quite surprised this idea about Reform catching 13 votes is because how they'll have handled if depending on I think it's something like 1,500 polling stations that they use, how they then map that out onto the rest of the country, and the model that they use to do that. So it's interesting to see. That's where you get such variation. That's why you need like polls of polls and things like that to make it work. So I think there's going to be broader discussions about what we do with polling after this election, because I do think it has influenced the result. Because it's interesting how some of the parties have used it as well. So the Green Party in particular have used advertising that says, look, Labour's going to win a landslide. You don't have to worry about that. So that means that in these couple of seats, you can vote Green with no risk. No risk of taking away votes away from Labour, so therefore no risk of keeping a Tory majority. And they've been able to do that because of the polling, because everybody's going, oh, well, yes, there's no risk. We can afford to play a bit fast and loose here. But equally, it's been damaging, or it's been potentially damaging, and we'll only know that when we see turnout, is that a lot of people doing it, listening to all this polling, say, oh, Labour's going to win. They're going to win a landslide. They're actually turning around and saying, well, actually, I don't need to bother. What difference is my one vote going to make? Therefore, I don't need to go and vote. Therefore, that makes it quite risky, because a lot of people are just taking for granted that Labour's going to win. And actually, if nobody's turned out and voted, you never know what might happen. So, whilst yes, the polling, the exit polling is positive, until we see a result, then we don't know. Another interesting post here from Amanda on LinkedIn, basically saying this is only the 30th general election here in the UK that women have actually been able to vote. That's mind-blowing, really.
It really is.
So, I mean, I guess it's not so much when you see where we generally have elections every 5 years, etc. But yeah, that's quite a big deal. And it's one of the things we keep trying to tell. I get frustrated at people who don't vote anyway. I mean, I'll put that out there. But particularly women who don't vote say that they're not going to go and vote. It's like, well, people, suffragettes died to give you to get you that vote. So please do. Somebody else on LinkedIn saying that a friend in Denmark told me that the UK is going broke. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I haven't maxed out my credit card yet. But there is, I mean, like there is around the world. I mean, there is a significant financial challenge that the new government coming in is going to have to face up to. So this is the other change, or the other difference to this 1997 comparison that we keep talking about. Is in 1997 they had a lot of money. The economy was doing quite well, and they knew what they were looking at there was different spending decisions. That they were going to refocus away from more of the Conservative-led values and put them more into Labour-led values, things like the National Health Service and social care and things like that. And a lot of people think that that when Labour take office tomorrow, assuming that they do, that the sort of same will happen, and it won't be, because there isn't the money there in the same way. The economy is kind of tanked at the moment, and so there isn't the same level of public spending available right now. So therefore, the first priority of the incoming government will be to repair um, to be basically repair the economy and then make that spending, make them changes into healthcare and things that they want to, assuming that it's there. Say the people, the government. Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think the government are the people, I would argue. Yes, it's the exchequer, the public funding is not what it was in 1997. Oh, no, that's too early to be announcing something. Surely, what time are we on? Yes, we've only been going for 35 minutes. There's no way they can get that done in that time. But, so Nick, what's your experience with? Have you been to a count, or do you watch it on telly? What's the way that you like to enjoy?
No, my experience is very much watching live what we had up just a moment ago. In fact, I'll bring it up for the visual again, just because it's a fun thing to look at. They're still going. They are still going on that. But that's my experience, and I know some folks who have been sort of in the process that have talked about their experiences. But obviously it's a state, a UK experience. So here's what we're talking about from earlier. We kind of had this view up courtesy of Reuters. They're running all the ballots in. Everybody frantically counting. I love that this is happening on July 4th. By the way, it's like it's our Independence Day from the King, and well, it's your Independence Day from the Tories, I guess, is sort of the way we're all joking about it over here.
The amount of amusement and irony that when that came up. I'm just trying to see what my friend is. Oh, that's exciting. I've forgotten the question. What did you ask?
Well, you asked me what was my experience, and then I kind of joked about independence.
Back in the room. No, I was literally just looking up. So a friend of mine is standing in Scotland, and I've now found the Sky, the bit of the exit poll that means you can interrogate individual seats. So it looks like she might gain that seat, which is terribly exciting. And then the seat that I stood for in '97 looks like that's going Labour as well. So that's good news. I do think there is a distinct there is something about seeing these counts happening live, which most people won't do unless you're a political anorak and actually have it, because you need to get passes to be able to enter these things. So certainly in the UK you do, right, anyway. But there is just something, because a lot of people talk about like votes being rigged. I mean, I think you've had the odd one or two things in the US about that, haven't you? About the insinuations about elections.
There's plenty of insinuations. Whether it actually happens is another thing.
But this is where I find this fascinating, that you can that you literally see the vote coming in out of a sealed box. It is in front of people. It's got an X on it. It's or whatever mark is in the UK that the person has put on it, and that they've scrawled on in pencil or whatever, and they've and then it's counted and things like that. So it's just very, very low tech in many ways that I think is really cool. So yeah, it's fascinating to watch. It's tiring as well, seeing everything happen in the way that it does. But then you also see almost the roller coaster of emotions that people go through. So the first one I ever took part in was in 2010, and seeing been doing a lot of work for a Labour MP called Pamjit Nanda, and so we were in Gloucester Count when obviously that's when Labour lost and the Tories then took control, or rather the coalition. But it was we didn't get out of that sports centre until 6 o'clock in the morning. I think the result was called something like 5 or something like that. And you'd been up since literally 24 hours earlier. You'd been running around the city doing leaflet drops, knocking people's doors, asking them to go to vote, and if they've voted, and if they vote, who they voted for, etc., etc. Then you go to the count and you do all that sort of stuff. And then you're going through that bit where you're doing that sampling stuff. Then you're watching people, because once you've done the sampling, then you watch the people actually doing the counting to make sure they count properly. Putting the right numbers of votes in the bundles, etc., etc. And then you're waiting for the count to be declared, and to have put so much, you put 24 hours, 25 hours worth of slog into it, then have your the candidate who you've been supporting and pushing lose their seat, it just become massively emotional. More so because you're tired, you're fed up, your feet are sore, and the seat has been lost. Which in that year I then had to go back the following day do the same thing, because I was standing in the local elections for my first time as well. So it's interesting experiences. But if anybody gets the opportunity to do it, totally recommend doing it, both seeing it and actually participating.
Yeah, and I guess this is a nice sort of reminder that there are several ways that you can get involved with the political process, at least here in the States. There are several different ways in which you can get involved for the party of your choice. You can donate. That's one. That you could also put your time and volunteer for campaigns, either through writing postcards or sort of canvassing, going door to door, phone banking. There's plenty of opportunities that you can do or take advantage of to help with this process of democracy.
It is and it's amazing how almost transactional it is. That really what you are trying to do is convince each individual voter that you're worth voting for. Because there's a lot of chat, a lot of discussion now around, certainly in the UK, we hear lots of slogans like, they're all the same, they're all on the take, they're all in it for themselves, as political people who are standing up for election. And the reality is that's just not true. There's obviously some people who are, because it's the same with any branch of society, but most people who are standing to do stuff are doing it because they want to make a difference in the way that they believe and the way that they see fit. And then there's loads of people behind it as well who help. They never stand for public office. They never want to be in the limelight, but they work really, really hard to get the people to elect people on all of the different fronts. So yes, regardless of which party you vote for, or you want to go and engage with, get involved, because it's amazing. I find it almost quite stunning that the way that our country is ran, or both of our countries are ran, basically live off volunteers. Without the volunteers going door to door, putting out the advertising stakes, without gathering all the stuff, without donating free food and all that sort of stuff to all the workers, we wouldn't have a political system. And it's largely them unsung heroes that make a huge difference in what they're doing.
Kind of crazy, right? All right. Well, so to go over your predictions one more time, given that there's likely to be some variance,
Yes.
Let's put your predictions up against the exit poll numbers, and then we'll come back to it and see how
What is right?
What the delta was. Jeez.
Yeah. So mine. No way I can put them on this. There isn't really.
You can share, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Where did I write them? I'm sure I wrote them down if I can pull them. Oh, there we go.
Get an Excel sheet up.
Well, I've got a word sheet. As I do. If I let's share that one. So it's not terribly sexy.
There we go. Hold on. All right, let me get that going there for us, and I will put us over here. Hold on. You want me to see if we can get in a little tighter on that? Oh wait, no, that's not working.
I can probably move it.
You'll probably need to zoom in there.
Yeah.
And I'll kill the visual elements here one more time.
The headline ones, I guess. All
right. So that's your predictions.
Wonderful implied. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my prediction. So the exit poll is showing currently 410 for Labour, not 438. 131 for Conservative instead of my 114. 61 for Lib Dem instead of my 58. It was 10 for SNP, I'm fairly sure.
Yep, that's right.
And the DUP are both Northern Ireland. I only thought the Reform would get 1, whereas they're predicting 13.
Yeah,
and then all the others are sort of wrapped up into that 35. So yeah, it's exciting. Some of the others that I've been doing this with, some of my more political friends, a couple of them have slightly, they have different predictions, which I find quite amusing. But then we're all kind of there or thereabouts. A lot of the discussion actually was around the size, and it still will be around the size of the Conservatives when they finish, because a lot of discussion has been around, would the Lib Dem vote, the Liberal Democrat vote, get above the Conservative vote? Now, obviously, as it looks at the moment, that's not going to be the case. The Liberal Democrats would need to at least double what they're currently predicted to get. But if they then ended up going into, if the Conservatives came third, so there weren't even official opposition, what would that mean to them as a party, but also what would it mean to the political system? Because again, we're largely an adversarial two-party system in the way that it works out. Whereas if the Liberal Democrats are more centrist, it works currently because Conservative are right-leaning, Labour are left-leaning. Liberal Democrats are pretty much slap bang in the centre or just centre-left. So if the Lib Dems came second and became the official opposition, then that would throw some interesting dynamics that no one's expecting, because you've got a left party, a left-wing party, and a centre-left party, basically trying to hold each other to account.
Right. So yeah, everything would be pushed even further left, where now the sort of opposition is pushing it, would push it to the right because they're the bigger number.
But then you would argue, would the government be held to account well enough? I mean, we've already talked about this idea of the supermajority,
right?
Which means that Labour can pretty much ram through anything that it wants if it's got this sort of hold on it, and if it's bold, it will do so, and it should do so quite quickly. But then if you haven't got if you've got this strong left-wing government, I mean, it is going to be sort of more centre-left than far-left. If you haven't got a strong opposition there to do some of that holding to account, what difference is that going to make? And it'll be interesting to see the dynamic about whether a right-wing opposition or a centre-left opposition will make a difference and how that will work. At the moment, it doesn't seem like that's a problem, but the last Conservative leader to have such a small number of MPs was an MP called William Hague in 1997, and he, in one of his books, has said that what the number of MPs that he had, it was difficult to fully hold the government to account, because by the time you've done all your shadow cabinet, You've done your representation on committees and select committees and all them sort of things, kind of out of people. You haven't, and you also, because you have less, you get more funding for the more MPs that you have, in what they call short money, and so you've actually got less money to do research with. You got less money to do some of the analysis with. So yeah, even if the Conservatives stay in the official opposition with these low numbers, then they're in for a tough time.
Right. So what's the do you know off the top of your head what the largest sort of majority has been historically?
I think it's Blair's in '97. I think it's the one we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Let me
here I got it here. It looks like there was a conservative majority in 1924, 100 years ago. That was 209. But yeah, it looks like in recent history, 179 was the largest majority here with Blair.
Yeah. Which is, it is one of them, and as I said earlier, nobody. I think even if you go back 2021, if you went back to 2020, 2021, nobody would have put any money on what you're seeing now.
Right.
Nobody would have thought that we'd have had this sort of, or Labour would have had this sort of breakthrough. It is largely down to, I think a lot of people will be quite honest and open and saying it is down to the collapse of the Conservatives rather than necessarily Labour winning everything. But yeah, it's still, this is history being made right here.
Yeah, and just so, like, because here majority is like, how many the way we think about it is how many votes can we lose from our own side before.
Yeah.
So is that the same there? So like how many votes?
So it's so a majority is 320. So there's 650 MPs within the Houses of Parliament, and so it is basically half of that plus one. It's not quite that in some ways, but yes, it's how many votes can the government can have, and if everybody goes and votes, then they will have to they beat everybody else hands down. So normally you would say the 650 MPs, so that's 320. So you need 326 to have the majority, and to have a majority of one. However, that's not quite true because Sinn Féin don't take up their seats in the House of Parliament, because Sinn Féin is one of the so the Sinn Féin and the DUP are both from Northern Ireland, and I think Alliance are as well. I can't remember, but certainly Sinn Féin don't take up their seats in Westminster, so it's actually 643 divided by 2 plus 1. That gives you the majority that you need to work with. But also, if your majority is too small, because a bit like the Republicans and Democrats are, that you're already a coalition of broad-minded people, so your range of people that you've got in will give you an element of argument and discussion. So you might not be able to get all of your MPs to vote for what you want, and this is one of the other discussions around this idea of this supermajority. That actually Labour might find this harder because of the infighting that can go on. Right. You might see more Labour people not exactly towing the Labour Party line all the time, but again, that means that they're holding their own party to account. So it works, but it's all down to, we can sort of get fixated on the numbers, but it's all about people. It's all about making sure that you can coalesce a team around a certain idea, motivate them to do what they do, and in order to get the policies through to make the country a better place, or at least the country looking like the way you want it to look. So,
man, I'm looking at some of the reactions, and some of the reactions are all over the place from everyone. I mean, one of my favorites here is someone in the Labour Party on the subreddit for Labour. The opinion polls were predicting God Emperor Starmer, but the exit polls show a strong Prime Minister Starmer. They're upset about it. So
it's interesting, isn't it? There's so I was chatting to somebody the other day who put on Facebook saying I don't trust a word Starmer says. He's a liar. He's a cheat. Blah blah blah. And I was like, it's not really. You can't prove that. You know, there's nothing you can say that he's actually lied about. And actually, he's got a long history of public service. He's not a charismatic person, if I'm being brutally honest. Certainly not in his public face. I've sort of met him a couple of times, and actually, he's quite a decent chap to chat to. But he's not the most charismatic, or certainly wasn't. I think he's improved, but he wasn't the most charismatic public speaker. But quite frankly, with the way that the UK politics has been for a while now, I think we well overdue just a bit of boring. We need the ability just for some people just to get on with doing the job rather than showboating and all that sort of stuff. We just want to see some really grey, dull competence, and I kind of hope we get some of that for a bit.
I'm not seeing a source here, but someone says we'll see. But there's growing speculation that the exit polls are too bullish on the Tories.
I've just seen a different exit poll from GB News, which puts the Tories on 410. I think somebody's got that wrong, very strongly. That's funny. Sent to me by a friend. But no, I mean, I think it's again, like we said, the count that.
Oh, wait, hang on. Was that the ITV predictions?
No, this was GB News.
Okay. The Scottish Tory source says the ITV predictions on the exit poll, which show them making big gains, are, quote, total bollocks and, quote, nonsense.
Yes, I think it might be the. I haven't seen the ITV polls yet. Let me just have a look at that. TV exit poll.
Yeah, exit polls suggested Sunak survived in keeping his seat.
Mm-hmm.
Corbyn's seat is uncertain.
Oh, that's true. That's the other one.
Pushed out of Labour.
It's going to be interesting. So Jeremy Corbyn. So we talk about the worst Labour result in like living memory, and that was when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, which he ran. He was leader for two general elections, 2017 and 2019, and then he was suspended from the Labour Party in 2020. I want to say 2021, something like that. And then more recently, he was suspended, and then he's suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party, and then actually suspended from the party when he started campaigning against him and decided to stand as a candidate in his own right, because he wasn't going to be allowed to stand as a Labour candidate in his constituency of Islington North. And so he decided to start to his own candidate. That's fine. And so it'd be interesting to see whether he keeps his seat for the amount of people who went in to support him as a person, or Labour keeps the seat as people who support Labour in general. Because there's normally a fairly well understood idea that you as a candidate, when you stand, you don't actually have that much influence on a general election vote. You might have a little bit, 1 or 2%, but nothing much more than that, really. Obviously, that was very different when I stood, because I had a massive following for my own vote. So that will be a true test to see whether Jeremy Corbyn has a strong enough following, and they were able to pump enough into it for him to keep a seat as an independent, or not. And we shall see. It's all quite fascinating.
Well, I know you said you wanted to do this for an hour, so you should probably get some sleep because I know you'll be up late at night. The encouraging thing to me is that the UK and the US tend to share political trends, and this would be a sign of good news for us over here. A bellwether, so to speak, that good things are coming our way too, despite what all the media is saying, given our polls and the age of our candidates and anything. I think we're better off than people think, and there's a lot of dooming and glooming, but this is encouraging to us over here in the States.
I was going to say we haven't discussed your debate, which I watched. I have to say with some horror. So yes, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next. When's the Democrat convention? In a couple of weeks?
Yeah, nothing's changing.
We should.
Nothing's
I guess,
changing.
No. Maybe it should. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Let us change our government first, and then we'll see it. We'll come over and sort your side out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Maybe we should do this again in November when our elections happen.
We absolutely should. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and sort of came out with the idea that maybe we need a third channel, a people in politics channel, where we talk about the human within politics around the world. I think that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
We could interview people, get politicians on, and grill them from a human factors perspective and all sorts.
Yes, and we have some connections, I think. So we should definitely do that.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. Congratulations on your transformative victory.
Our
landslide
victory.
What's that?
Predicted transformative victory. I'm not counting the chickens coming to loot.
Okay, fine. Yeah, sure. There's variation on the predicted landslide.
Yes.
I'm looking over with pride is not the word I'm looking for.
Envy.
Envy, also not the word I'm looking for. Hope is hope the word I'm looking for?
That works. So,
yeah. All right,
awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to chat through this.
This was fun.
We shall see you probably next time. Whether that's next week or not, we shall see.
We shall see. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks for joining us on this special July 4th live stream, and we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody. Oh, wait, bye.